Hey everybody, welcome to the second episode of The Constitution Doesn't Say What You Think It Says. I hope you enjoyed that first one. That was my first YouTube video really ever. So they will get better from here, I promise. One thing I forgot to mention is the Constitution, when it was originally written, was written for white males over the age of 21. So that really played a part all the way up until the Civil War, when we started getting amendments that included others that were not white males over the age of 21. In fact, today, 2021, minors still don't have constitutional rights. They don't. That's why when a minor is arrested, a parent has to be present before the police can question them. So the parent can give their consent for the questioning because they have to invoke their Fifth Amendment rights. They have to invoke their right to an attorney to help their child. So pay attention to that. Remember it because it's going to come up later. Now on the Facebook page, we've had a lot of dialogue. A lot of it has been honestly crap. I don't want that stuff on the Facebook page. If you want to comment on the YouTube channel or the Facebook page, keep it civil, keep it intelligent, keep the rhetoric out. I don't want it. We did have some good questions, some good conversations. One was from James Persovic, who asked, what exactly makes me an expert on the Constitution and what the original intent was? Am I a constitutional scholar? What is my background on the subject? So the answer to that, I've never claimed to be an expert on the Constitution. What I am is an amateur historian with a special interest in the Constitution, the Civil War, and World War II. As for being a constitutional scholar, I'm not. I'm going to be honest. But I do have formal education on the Constitution. I have taken classes on it. I have taken different classes here and there. But what I bring to the table is a politically neutral look at the Constitution. I read it for what it is, not for what my political ideology says it should say. Excuse me. I'm not a liberal, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a conservative. I read it for what it is. So with that, James, I hope that answers your question. We're going to get into it. Article 2, the 12th Amendment and the 20th Amendment. Why am I starting here? Well, it's been in the headlines for the past several months, what these amendments and articles discuss. So, these basically lays out the qualifications to run for the election of and the powers granted to the President of the United States. Article 2, Section 1. So Clause 1, the executive power shall be vested in the President of the United States. He shall hold his office during this term of 4 years, and together with the Vice President chosen for the same term be elected as follows. So right away, get you in there with the separation of powers, that the President is head of the executive branch. So we have three branches: executive, judicial, and legislative. So the President is the head of the executive branch. So Clause 3 of Section 1 is very important because it's been misrepresented, it's been misunderstood, there's been lies about it over the past few months, all the way up until the inauguration of our current President, Joe Biden. Clause 3 talks about the election of the President. People have been saying for months and months and months that Congress can override the electorate votes They've been saying that the vice president can overturn the electorate votes. None of that is true. They've been saying that it's written in the Constitution. It is not written in the Constitution anywhere that Congress and the vice president can overturn the election or the electorate votes. Clause 3, word for word, the electors shall meet in their prospective states and vote by ballot for 2 persons, of whom one at least shall not be an inhabitant of the same state with themselves, and they shall make a list of all the persons voted for, and of the number of votes for each, which list they shall sign and certify and transmit to the seat of the United States government of the United States, directed to the President of the Senate. The President of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate and House of Representatives, open all certificates, and the votes shall be counted. The person having the greatest number of votes shall be president. That's it. Nothing further is written in the Constitution that gives Congress or the vice president the authority to overturn the election. That is written in the Constitution. What they're talking about is actually Title III of the United States Code, which does give Congress the authority to object to the electorate votes, but it has to be specific reasons. They cannot object to the electorate votes because they don't agree with their votes. Period. So, Title III, look it up. Section 15 is where you'll want to look for that. It tells you about objecting to the electorate votes. Let's see, Clause 3 also states what should happen if no candidate receives a majority vote from the Electoral College, which basically the House of Representatives will adjourn from the joint session and they will vote for who they want to be president. Let's see. At the end of section 1, it also talks about the president taking his oath of office, basically. I do solemnly swear, blah, 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 blah. You know all about that. Section 2, pretty short and sweet, talks about the duties of the president, such as being commander-in-chief of the military and the militia. The militia, i.e. being the National Guard, not all these backwoods people running around in camouflage and AR-15s who say they're militias. The president can also appoint judges, ambassadors, along with other public ministers and consuls. We all know that. Section 3 says that he or she shall give the State of the Union every so often, which is once a year. Section 4 talks about impeachment. That has also been really big lately in the news because people are talking about, oh, you can't impeach a private citizen. Well, you're right. You can't impeach a private citizen. But if that private citizen was president of the United States, they can still be impeached if the impeachment process was started when they were still in office, which is what happened this time around. The president, vice president, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. The impeachment process for Donald Trump was started when he was still in office. Once the ball is rolling, you can't stop it. It doesn't matter if he leaves office before the Senate trial. It was started. It has to finish. He was already out of office, so removing him from office was not the issue. The issue was keeping him from running for office in the future. The Senate spoke on that, and they set a very dangerous precedent when they did not convict Donald Trump. I'm not going to get into that right now. We'll get into that maybe later. But through all of this, I'd also like to talk about political parties. So if you look through Section 1, Section 2, and Section 3, Article 1, Article 2, Article 3 of the United States Constitution, which lays out the qualifications, duties, and so forth of the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Nowhere does it talk about political parties. In fact, when you look at Section 3 of Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3 of Article 2, when it talks about the election of the president, nowhere does it say that the candidate for president be chosen by national convention for their party. Nowhere does it say that the president shall pick a vice president from their party to run with them. So if you really look at the Constitution closely, political parties are unconstitutional. You can argue that all you want, but in my opinion, my unbiased opinion, political parties are unconstitutional. So, we talked about Article 2. Now let's go to the 12th Amendment. The 12th Amendment was ratified in 1804 and was brought about because of the election in 1800 between John Adams and his current Vice President, Thomas Jefferson. During that election, it actually came down to a tie in electorate votes between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr, who was his running mate for vice president and also from the same political party. Here we go again, political parties. So you had a presidential candidate and a vice presidential candidate with the same party running as running mates for the presidency, but both were still getting votes for president. Why? Because political parties are unconstitutional. So, Aaron Burr, Thomas Jefferson received a tie in the Electoral College. Now, Congress couldn't decide who they wanted to be president because of the political parties. They were both from the same party, so it ended up being Thomas Jefferson, for whatever reason, became president, and Aaron Burr, because of the Constitution, became vice president. So after that, Congress approved the 12th Amendment in 1803 and ratified it in 1804. So from 1804 on, the 12th Amendment basically rewrites paragraph 3 of Article 2. So instead of the electors voting who they wanted for president, and then the second highest number going to be vice president, the electors had to vote for who they wanted to be president and who they wanted to be vice president on a separate ballot. So now it is clear and concise who the electors want to be president and who they want to be vice president. So that is why you will see the vice president, who acts as the president of the Senate on January 6th, talk about the electors with so many votes for this state for this candidate for president, and so many votes for this from this state for this candidate for vice president. The amendment also reduces the list of presidential candidates from 5 to 3. So short and sweet with the 12th Amendment, it basically amends Article 2, Paragraph 3. So now the electors have to specifically vote for president and vice president. A lot of people ask me, why does it take so long for the president to take office after they're elected in November? Well, our votes are really just a formality, because to be elected president, you have to have so many electoral votes. You have to have a majority, which today is 270. So the electors, they meet in December, which is a full month and a half after we vote. And then they vote, their states certify their votes, and they send it to Congress. Now, we have to wait for the new Congress to take office in January, which we'll also talk about in the 20th Amendment, because they, that's mentioned there as well. So they have to read the certified elector votes from the month prior. So this is why it's taking so long. There is a process which is laid out by the Constitution. Now, the 20th Amendment changes the terms of the president and vice president, because before, the president actually didn't take office until March 4th. So it was actually much later that the president did take office, mainly because when the Constitution was written all the way up until later, maybe 100, 150 years later, it wasn't very easy to travel the country during the winter, which is what we were going into after the election. So they had to wait for the spring thaw for the president-elect to safely travel to Washington to take office. So in 1933, we got the 20th Amendment, which changed that because it was easier to travel. And that way people didn't have to wait so long for the new president to go in. So with the 20th Amendment now, the President of the United States, let me go ahead and read this for you. So, 20th Amendment, Section 1, the terms of President and Vice President shall end at noon on the 20th day of January, and the terms of Senators and Representatives at noon on the 3rd day of January of the years in which such terms would have ended if the article had not been ratified, blah, 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 all that jargon. So, the new Congress is seated on January 3rd. So 3 days later, they have to certify the electoral votes. And then 14 days later, the new president takes office. So that is basically why we do that. So another thing from the 20th Amendment that a lot of people were talking about because of the ages of the candidates for president this year was what should happen should the president-elect die before he was supposed to take office. And that's what Section 3 of the 20th Amendment talks about, is essentially if that were to happen, the normal line of succession would take place. So if the president-elect should die before he takes office, the vice president-elect will become president. It also talks about if the president-elect shall not be certified by the time he's supposed to take office, whether there's a problem with the electorate votes or whatever it should be, the vice president-elect shall take office until such time that the president-elect or somebody else is qualified to take office. So that is it in a nutshell, guys. Article 2, Amendment the 12th Amendment and the 20th Amendment, basically the election of, the duties of, and everything else of the President of the United States. I really wanted to talk about this because I really wanted to clear the air, because this has really been a bad year. There was a lot of misinformation going around, and I hope this cleared something up. I know some of you won't agree with it. Some of you will argue it till the end, but it is what it is. The Constitution says what it says, and it doesn't say what it doesn't say. You can't just go out and say the Constitution says this when somebody can turn around and read the Constitution and say, look, it doesn't say that. So going forward, let's just be civil with each other. Let's stop the divisiveness. Let's stop all the rhetoric. And let's just be Americans. Let's have our Constitution as it is. I really look forward to doing more with this. I hope you guys enjoyed episode 2. Make sure you subscribe to this channel so you can get more, and also like our Facebook page, Let's Talk Constitution. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. Wear a mask, and I will see you guys later.